Welcome to Google Forms. Google Forms, you can use this for like many different assessments. You can use it for, let's say, mga essay or even multiple choice, etc. So Google Forms, we're going to look at how we can make different types of questions. Okay. In Google Forms, so you'll have this simple interface. Google Forms can be divided into different sections. And in each section, you can create different questions. So by default, we have like section 1 of 4. I have multiple sections here based on some of the items that we can do. So first up, we start off with our first question. We can do this by clicking on these different icons. So here in the right, you have the option to add a question, import questions. So if you've created, let's say, past Google Forms, you can, instead of like having to type it all up, you can use an old Google Form. So if I click on that, it will show me all of the Google Forms I've created in the past. And then if I click on this Google Form and click on it, it will show me all of the questions that I've made in the past. And then I can even select all of those questions for import, or I can just simply choose the ones that I want part of my quiz. Okay, so that's something we'll look into later on. Okay, so with Google Forms, you can also add in images from, let's say, from your computer, from your camera, okay, from a URL. So if you're not using Google search, you can, or you found something on one of the many photo apps online, you can use that. And just like Google Photos, you can also use Google Photos, images from your Google Drive, and Google Image Search also. Okay? So let's go first to the questions. When we create a question, we have different types of questions that we can ask our students. First, we have the short answer, such as this. Usually, this could be short answer means mga one-line sentences. And when you preview this document, those short answers will like only be limited to a certain space. So it doesn't expand. Now, let's say you want your students to write paragraphs and long sentences. The next option is the long text. So the long text is where you can have your paragraphs. Okay. Sometimes we don't like, let's say, we want to make sure that our students stick to, let's say, a certain number of characters. We can use an option here. Click on the 3 dots and then response validation. With the response validation, we can set the length of how long paragraphs can be. So usually in a one-page paragraph, that could be like maximum of 3,000 letters or 3,000 characters. So if your student exceeds 3,000 letters, then that means that they cannot add any more. You can also include a minimum character count, let's say of just say 10 characters or 10 letters. Okay, so that's really up to you how you want to use paragraph function. Next question that you can ask are your multiple choice questions. So with multiple choice questions, you can have A, B, C, or D, or even in number forms. Or if you want in your questions, let's say kung true or false siya, and then if it's like yung modified true or false, where if it's false, they have to write the correct answer, you can also add the option of other. And in the other option, students can be able to can type their answers here. So that's for multiple choice. Next up are check boxes. So in the check boxes, you give your students like different options also. It also functions in the same way as multiple choice. But where for multiple choice, you can only choose one answer. But for checkboxes, you can have your students answer or check all of the boxes at the same time. And then next up, we have our drop down menu. So our drop down menu is basically you have the question and then it has a menu that you can select whether, yes, I'm learning a lot, no, not really. So they have those different options. Okay, and that's drop down. Now we have the linear scale. So the linear scale is like for your surveys or evaluations. So it looks like this. Do you agree or disagree? Totally agree. So you can see with the linear scale that you give your students like what are they feeling right now? How are they doing? And that sort of things. Okay. And then next up, we have the matching type or what's known as the multiple choice grid. So in the multiple choice grid, you can arrange your different questions into rows. And then in the columns, you can give your students options for their answers. So if you'll notice, matching type. So if we're going to match the capitals of these countries, your students can select those capitals from the columns provided. Okay. And then for visual arts and performing arts teachers, there's an option on Google Forms for you to upload a file. Okay. So the uploading of files, you can allow like specific types. So for example, if you're a visual arts teacher, then you can have them upload, let's say, a PDF, a drawing, especially if they're using Google Drawing, even a presentation, and then images and even audio. And then you can also choose the number of files that they can upload, 1, 5, and 10. And then maximum file size, so 1 MB all the way up to 10 gigabytes. Since we're all using our do not have a storage limit, so we have an infinite amount of storage email account. So you can have students send a file as big as 1 gigabyte. But if you're going to use, let's say, your personal email accounts, our personal email accounts can only handle up to 15 gigabytes. Now, if you don't, now if you're just accepting any kind of file, you can just toggle that switch off, and then the student can upload or attach different files as well. So what does it look like right now? In our Google Forms, we have these different options or tools as well. So apart from previewing, which we'll do right now, so this is what it will look like. Okay. So you have your short response question. If you're using long text, you can write in paragraphs. You can even write all of these things. See, you can enter. Okay. And then you have your multiple choice questions. So other, they can type it up here, or they can also choose the different letters. And then the same for the check boxes. So checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. And drop down menu. And then your linear scale as well. Okay, so that's how it looks like so far. So so for now, let's say you want to turn this into a quiz. Okay, so to turn this this Google form into a quiz, so right beside the preview button is this gearbox here. In the gearbox, we click on it. We can change it into a quiz. So here in the settings, we have the general. So we can collect email addresses. We can require a sign in. So most of the time of our Google Forms will restrict us to those students who have a Keys email account or teachers with Keys email account. But if, let's say, we're going to use this for outside purposes, by default, this is clicked. So all you can do is just unclick that. You can also limit this Google form just one response, but it will require them to sign in with their Google account. So if they don't have a Google account, best to just give them that one response. Okay. Now, after they're done answering this Google form, they can edit after they submit it. So there's going to be a link that they can still edit the responses also. But if you don't want them to edit after submit, then just leave it unchecked. Okay. So in terms of presentation, you can give the students or have your Google form show the progress bar so far. You can even shuffle the question order for that Google form. And if you want them to submit another response, you can also do so. But most of the time, since you only want this to be like a one-time quiz, then you can unclick that. The rest, you can show like the progress bar so that they know like how far they have to go back. Or in terms of shuffling question order. So let's say you don't want students to have the same questions or they're answering this quiz at the same time, and you want to make sure that the questions are shuffled so that they can share their or cheat. Then you can shuffle it also. And then for quizzes, we can take this or make this as a quiz. So when I click on making this as a quiz, we can now assign different point values and also make this Google form auto check our work. Yes. If we're using Google Forms, we can already input our answer key into our Google Forms so that we don't have to manually check anymore, and we'll already know the scores of the students even beforehand. So since we're going to make this into a quiz, let's click save first. Okay. So now that it's a quiz, we'll take a look. So text question. So what changed? You'll now see that there is an answer key and point system that you can assign for each question. So in the answer key, because this is a short response question, if I click on answer key, I can assign the amount of points I want to give. We can already input our correct answers also. So let's say the question is, sino nagsulat ng Noli Me Tangere? Diba? So with the answer key, we can change that. So let's change answer key. And then we can add the correct answer. So Jose Rizal, even Jose Rizal. And now it's now going to be a so when the student types that answer, if they are able to type it correctly, then it will show us a correct answer. For long text, usually I don't put in an answer key for the long text, but there is like feedback that you can give for the students. Then we can also simply assign the total number of points also. If you'll notice here on the upper right, it's adding up as we add points to the different items in our Google Forms. Okay, so it goes for multiple choice. In the multiple choice, we click on the item, lower left, answer key, and then we can choose which items are correct, or pwedeng just one kasi multiple choice lang siya. And then 1 point lang. And then for the check boxes, we can choose all items. We can just choose 2 items or 3 items, 4 items, it depends. And then we can also set the number of points also. Okay, so as you're editing your work, you'll see that every time you click on an item, you'll see the correct. Okay. Now for the linear scale, usually we can just put in our feedback and also the points as well, or we don't give it as well. Now for matching type, you'll see in the matching type, we can create an answer key, and then here we can choose. So Philippines, Manila, and then 1 point. And then Japan, Tokyo, 1 point again. And then the same for the other items also. Okay, so there. So it already gives us those auto checking. Now, sometimes when we send out these Google Forms, there is there are times where our students might forget or miss out on an item as they're working. So if we're going to go back to the question, we can click the required button. So the required button means that before they can submit anything, they have to answer that question. So just by clicking, it's just requiring them to answer it. Okay. Now, when it comes to the matching type questions, you'll see that here in the requirements, there has to be a required response in each row. If you'll notice with this Google Doc, the questions are shuffling itself. So every time I refresh, the order of the questions change. Okay, so let's say I answer this first, Jose Rizal, and then I answer, and answer. So you'll see in the Google form, there's this progress bar for the students. So which page they're currently at. Okay. Um, okay, so next, and then we submit. Okay, so when the student submits their Google form, they have this option of viewing the score. And when they click that view score, they'll see, so autocorrect na siya. Let's see, Jose Rizal, typed it up. And then everything is already here. Okay, even the correct answer is also shown as well.